In an hour's time, Soho will host a vigil to the 49 people murdered at a gay nightclub in Orlando. Later this month, a minute's silence will be held at the Pride March through the capital. The event began in 1972, but over the decades, it's become more of a celebration and less of a movement to change people's attitudes. But surely now, after America's worst shooting, this year the focus will sadly be on hate crime and the fear and vulnerability that can come with being gay. In a moment, we'll be live in Soho for tonight's vigil. But first, here's Simon Harris.
It's one of London's biggest street festivals outside of Notting Hill. In 2 weeks' time, up to 1 million people are expected to turn out for Pride in London. But the Orlando massacre has raised inevitable security fears around this year's LGBT celebration.
We absolutely recognise the fear that an outrageous event like this causes right across the globe, and London is no different to that. So we've been working through yesterday evening, through the night and into today, making sure we reach members of our community from the LGBT community, making sure that they feel safe, secure and reassured.
London's mayor showed his support for Pride today with a photo call at City Hall. Organisers believe Londoners will turn out in their hundreds of thousands.
I think what you'll see, in a very London-centric way, that people will come out and actually show their mark of respect and solidarity. And I'd encourage people to do that. We shouldn't be cowed by, if this is an act of terrorism, not just a hate crime, we shouldn't be cowed by that. We shouldn't be forced to change our way of life.
A lot of people still question why we have Pride, especially here in London, which is just such a welcoming city for all races, religions, sexuality, everything. So this really underlines why we still do it, why we still need Pride.
But before then, Old Compton Street in Soho was to become the setting for a vigil.
It has been a viscerally traumatic experience, because everybody knows that what happened there could have happened here or any other place in the world.
In the 1990s, London's gay community was exposed to homophobia in its most brutal forms. First from serial killer Colin Ireland, who murdered 5 gay men, and then the bombing of the Admiral Duncan. On April the 30th, 1999, a homemade nail bomb exploded inside the pub, killing 3 people, including a pregnant woman, and injuring almost 80. The gay bar had been targeted by David Copeland, a paranoid schizophrenic and neo-Nazi. Shortly after, people gathered in Old Compton Street for a vigil. 17 years on, it's happening again, after another murderous homophobic attack. Well, it's a bit damp here at the moment, but Old Compton Street is much as you'd expect on a Monday evening, busy with people heading home or perhaps for a night out. But in just under an hour, the bars will stop serving alcohol, the shops will stop serving their goods, music will be turned out, and the staff will all come out onto the pavement for the vigil. There'll be balloons, there'll be choirs, and there will be silence. Well, I'm joined now by 2 people who know this area well, who are very familiar with the community here. Jeremy Joseph, who runs GAY, perhaps one of the best-known nightclub chains around here, and Polly Shute, who's a director of Pride. Jeremy, first of all, can I ask you, as somebody who runs venues, owns venues, what do you do to reassure your customers when something like this happens?
I mean, our priority is making sure that when customers come into the venues, we search them, we check their bags, we ask them to put things into the cloakroom. We have to reassure them when they come in, but we also rely on customers as well to be vigilant, to obviously inform security if they see anything that they think is untoward. Again, it's with staff always reassuring customers. So it's a constant all the time, just drumming into customers how they've got to keep an eye on what's going on around them as well.
Was it only a matter of time before the LGBT community was targeted?
It was always going to be a matter of time. We've always known it was going to happen. On Sunday, when I woke up, it was for me the biggest nightmare coming true. I mean, we've known it was going to happen. We didn't know where. We've always known at some point the biggest fear is going to be one of our own venues. It's happened at Pulse, and our heart just goes out for them because we know what they're going through.
And can I just ask you, Polly, how much do you think Pride will be affected by what people fear?
Well, our current reactions of people has actually been so positive, and this is why I love the LGBT community, because yes, they're angry, yes, they're saddened, but also they're supportive and they want to come out. And I think we're going to have a fantastic day where people are going to want to come out and support Pride for the right reasons. They're going to want to show that we won't accept terrorism, we won't accept hatred, and we won't accept ignorance. And
Defiance.
Yeah, defiance, and we want to live our life with no filter. And Pride will continue as it has for the last 40 years. And I think it will just have greater meaning for everyone that attends.
Polly, Jeremy, both thank you very much for talking to us here in Old Compton Street. This event came out of a Facebook chatter last night. It's evolved into what could be quite a big moment. Nina.
Simon and Guess, thank you very much. While the Tory party are fighting among themselves over the EU, Labour intensified its row today over how it treats Jewish people. A leading London Labour MP told Ken Livingstone he was an embarrassment to the party who had betrayed Labour's values and his own legacy as mayor. Chaka Amuna was one of a panel of MPs investigating a recent rise in anti-Semitism. The former mayor was suspended from Labour in April over comments he made about Hitler. He told the committee today he couldn't apologise for them because they were true. Our political correspondent Simon Harris was watching.
If MPs were hoping for a contrite Ken Livingstone, they were disappointed.
Do you want to take this opportunity of apologising for anything that you said?
If I had said that Hitler was a Zionist, I would apologise for that because it's rubbish.
It was in April Ken Livingstone was suspended by Labour for remarks he made in a radio interview.
When Hitler won his election in 1932, his policy then was that Jews should be moved to Israel. He was supporting Zionism. His boy went mad and ended up killing 6 million Jews.
Today he was called before a committee of MPs investigating anti-Semitism, where he did make this admission.
If I could go back in time and avoid referring to Hitler and Zionism in the Vanessa Feltz interview, I would. Anyone who's been upset by what I say, I am sorry. But what I said is true.
Mr Livingstone's refusal to admit he was wrong clearly irritated some MPs, but it was with a London Labour MP he had the most heated clash.
By needlessly and repeatedly offending Jewish people in this way, you not only betray our Labour values, but you betray your legacy as mayor, because all you're now going to be remembered for is becoming a pin-up for the kind of prejudice that our party was built to fight against. That is a huge shame and it's an embarrassment. And you know what? I will get trolled incessantly after this exchange. I don't care.
Will you apologise?
What caused offence was a group of embittered old Blairite MPs running around lying about what I'd said. Yes, it's no good you wriggling away, Chukrimuna.
Why is it that the only minority group that you have repetitively caused offence to is the Jewish community?
Well, because I've always been a critic of the way the Israeli government has treated the Palestinians. I think it's one of the most appalling abuses of my lifetime.
Ken Livingstone told the committee he wasn't anti-Semitic, and when he was mayor, anti-Semitic attacks in London went down. Simon Harris, ITV News.
An eyewitness has told ITV London that he saw a young baby among 11 people who were stopped in Havering after allegedly entering the UK illegally in the back of a lorry. It comes as immigration remains the top issue ahead of next week's EU referendum. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Perched on cardboard boxes, these were some of the faces which greeted police when the steel doors of a truck were opened in East London. The driver was alerted by the sound of banging when he pulled up on an industrial estate at Harold Hill. There were 11 stowaways, 3 of them children.
They took them out of the van and one lady was in the police van breastfeeding a child, which I thought was a bit sad, really.
Where are you from? Iraq.
Where are you from, asks a policeman. Iraq is the reply. The truck is thought to have travelled across Europe before arriving here. The 8 adults were immediately arrested on suspicion of trying to get into the UK illegally. Last summer, 27 people from the Middle East were arrested when they emerged from a lorry at Cobham Services on the M25 in Surrey. Images like this have been seized upon by Leave campaigners, arguing for an end to the free movement of people in Europe. But Rita Chadha, who runs a charity offering migrants support and advice, says the picture is more complex.
Most refugees will come to the UK via airports or by making proper applications. It's very rare for people to be trafficked into the country. And these people have usually been exploited and are usually under quite a lot of pressure to escape from lots of different issues back in their own country.
The 8 adults arrested in East London were tonight still being questioned by immigration officers. Simon Harris, ITV News, Harold Hill.